over the last 3 months, we've closed and installed $1.2 million of sales through Arsenal, and that is 3 times what we did last year. So we're absolutely looking forward to growing even more with these guys. It's almost, this is going to sound kind of weird, but it's almost scary, right? That how good it's gone. I almost want to pinch myself sometimes. My name is Alex Powell, and I am the majority owner of Alliance Roofing, based in Smyrna, Georgia. And we first started with Arsenal back in November of 2024. I actually received a cold call from Arsenal about a year before that, and thought about it. That wasn't like really bought in, and then they were they were persistent. I think it might have been Sam who was calling me, um, and they were persistent. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm beating my head against the wall trying to do this on my own. I just signed up, took a chance. So that's how we got here. I thought about, hey, look, if they are this sort of persistent with me, would they be the same with potential customers for me? And as a business owner, we get cold calls all the time about like all kinds of stuff, and it's amazing how bad some of them can be. But these guys clearly weren't, right? Who were calling me. And honestly, part of it is like, look, we just weren't doing well at the time. I was new to this business, learning, try to do commercial roofing. And I was like, let's just try this to get a shot in the arm. We negotiated the contract so that it was, it gave us sort of some warm fuzzies in case things just didn't work out. And we felt pretty good about it. And then, it worked. Well, all right. So, like I said, we onboarded in the fall of last year, and this is May, and we just finished completing our first job with you guys. That was almost $750,000. And actually, today we're loading material on the second one, which is over $500,000. So, and we've got a lot of business in the pipeline that's come through you guys that we're working. Actually, have a proposal meeting on Wednesday for another $500,000 job. So I'd say it's going pretty well. I think what has impressed me so far about Arsenal, maybe the most was, so we signed this first deal in like late March, and that was about 5 months after we started. There was an early period where things weren't going really well. And I think we just had a mismatch with our first rep. I'm sure, I think he's great, but I just think it was a mismatch with our market or with roofing. And some of that's on me because I got to interview 3 people and I chose one, and things weren't going well. And honestly, I was thinking like, hey, I might not be able to continue this. And I got a call from, I think it was Brock. It was like, hey, we're going to make a change. We see the numbers. The numbers are not what we think they ought to be. So we're gonna make a change to give you a different rep. I appreciated that they didn't just take my money and were like, okay, but they saw that something needed to be corrected, and they corrected it, and it's been really great so far. I thought a lot about this. Just as I was trying to think about how do you guys do it? But the one, I think you hire really good people to be the reps, and they're obviously really well trained. And I don't know all the ins and outs of the process, but in the conversations I've had, it sounds like there's a real tight process about what to do when they call a customer and, they've got to categorize it. Like, are they like completely no interest? Are they really interested? Are they somewhere in the middle? And I have a feeling that where the magic happens is how do you take those folks in the middle and work them over time into something that is going to pay off down the road. I'm starting to see that, right? So one of the updates I'm starting to get on my weekly updates from my rep is, hey, look, this is one that I've been talking to for months. I never knew they existed, but like I've been talking to this guy for months. Looks like we're getting an appointment in the next 2 weeks, right? So that tells me that they're working. They've got a process to sort of make the sausage over a long period of time. Um, and I think that's probably a huge strength. That if someone were going to go try and do this on their own, like, but we're roofers or we're running a certain type of business, and that cold calling business is not it, right? So, um, I think for us to try and do that on our own will be tough. You know, I think that from a broad question like that, I think that the answer for this industry, the answer is no. It's obviously not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing the results we're seeing. Uh, I think that the old Wolf of Wall Street cold calling, a consumer, because we've tried to do that on a residential side too. I try to use cold callers to call just homeowners, whether it might be a storm or something like that, or even if you're door knocking for residential roofs. That is way different than it was even 4 or 5 years ago. Um, no one wants to talk to you, and a lot of people are upset. But in a business to business standpoint situation like this, it seems to work. And I think it just all depends on how you handle that call, right? And the beauty of Arsenal is I don't have to be there on the phone when all the rejection after rejection after rejection, that's somebody else's problem, right? And they just get the wins and love the wins. So yeah, I don't think it's dead for this at all, especially when you just have to catch them at the right time, right? So no, I don't think it's dead. I think this is probably the perfect industry for it because you're able to get in and out of that call without bugging them too much. If they say like I've got no problems on my roof, everything's good, then just amicably let them know that they can call you at any time, right? If they ever change their mind or if they ever have a leak, right? So no, I don't think it's dead. He's great. He is part of the team. I've had him on the phone with a couple of the actual employees a few times. Normally, he just interacts with me. But I mean, he's great. I can call him at any time. I can text him at any time. I know he's serving other clients too, but he'll give me a quick answer at the very least. And I think that is probably part of the secret of the success. If we can take credit for anything, is that we sort of treat him like a partner and try to give him really good feedback and try to help him out with like trying to be open and honest about like, hey, what we need, right? So early on in the sales process for me being sold on Arsenal was, hey, we'll do follow-ups for you. So I've leaned really hard on him to like, hey, get me back out there to go do a proposal, right? You got me out the first time to do the inspection. I'm not just going to send them a quote, right? The only way to be successful in this is to get in front of them and explain what they're getting for their money. And he's been great about getting us out there. And then as we keep talking and iterating that process, maybe, we're going to change how we go about that to take some of that off of him and back onto us, where we try and do our best to get that appointment set while we're there for the inspection, right? Get that follow-up date set. Then it's on us to get the proposal pulled together before then. But having that back and forth and, hey, look, these are the type of jobs I want, not these, really goes a long way. Yeah, so once we got with our current rep, after Arsenal decided to make that change, um, it was like instant. It was like a couple of weeks, and I had 4 appointments on my schedule. Um, and it is kind of lumpy. Like we'll go a while without getting anything, and then a few weeks ago, I had 3 or 4 more on my schedule, right? And then look, these are commercial roofs. They're longer buying cycles. They're not. It's not like a homeowner where you go see them and they sign the papers right then, and you have the material delivered on Monday, and you go and do the roof. It's not like that. It takes a lot of back and forth with them, sometimes a little negotiation. Um, so, and a lot of times we're talking to an employee, right? A maintenance manager or a controller or somebody, and they've got to get approval from someone higher up in the company, and those wheels take time to turn. So, I think one of the two that we have landed so far that literally we just finished the first one, and the second one we're starting like this week. Um, we first went and saw those folks in like December. So it takes a little while to get the ball rolling, but at the same time, we're starting to see some great stuff, right? And now I feel like I've got a pipeline. Um, I've got about over $3 million of uh, open quotes that either need to be presented or be followed up on, and it just keeps growing, right? So we're super excited about that. So far, it's 1.2 million, right? So that $750,000 job and then that $500,000 job, over 1.2, right? So, and the good news is, as just like anything else, as you start, that's the slowest part. And then as he's building leads in his pipeline that I don't even know about, and then we're building proposals that we've got a backlog of follow ups and proposals to put out there and stuff like that. And some of these people who either said no or ghosted us a couple months ago, somebody's going to call us and go, "Hey, I'm ready to do this now." Right? That always happens. So at the more time goes, it's gonna snowball, and we're gonna get even more. So yeah, so we're at 1.2 so far with over 3 million of open quotes proposals to follow up on. Oh, but yeah, it was a huge relief, I mean, and it was a huge win. It was the largest deal we've had in our company, right? And this, I'll be honest, the second one after it is the second largest deal we've had in our company, right? So the biggest deal we had ever before this was a little over 200,000. So both, one is three times, the other one is double the biggest we've had, and most of the ones we've got in the pipeline to try and close, I think one is under 500,000. The rest of them are all over 500,000. So that is something we learned early on. What I wanted to do, I was like, "Hey, look, our bread and butter is smaller jobs. Just get me on a bunch of like 30 square roofs and let us just go try and close a bunch of these folks," because I wasn't quite sure of our capabilities. Just learning this business at the time. But once we started seeing these really big ones and working with my production team and getting assurances that we could knock these out, and we are, we really feel like that's the way to go, because the rep can only make so many phone calls. They may as well be high value phone calls, right? And we can get the small jobs around here by word of mouth just with our previous customers. We were not a really big company. I'll go and say, like, we were around $2.5 million last year. And literally in the last 2.5 months, we've done 1.2 million, right? So just doing the math on that and putting that, annualizing that puts us at a multiple of what we were before. So for us, it's really been a game changer. And then what we've got to do is figure out how to keep growing on top of that. Yeah, well, the numbers are pretty irrefutable. Absolutely, we're getting a return on our investment. And it is, it's almost, this is going to sound kind of weird, but it's almost scary, right? That how good it's gone. I almost want to pinch myself sometimes. Well, thinking about how to go find somebody and train them on doing this, one, it's not something that's in my skill set. I've tried to cold call for myself before, and all the work it takes to get enough good phone numbers that you're dialing good numbers. And then once you're dialing good numbers, you finally get someone that answers the phone and it's a no, right? If that's not your skill set, that's really, really hard to do. So I don't feel like I could train someone to do this. So for me to go replicate this on my own, I would have to go hire someone who's already a professional at this, right? And then they've got to be like click with my customer base for it to work, right? If you're cold calling for something else, it may not work for this. And providing the software, right? I know you guys have sophisticated software to to track everything from beginning to end and manage those customers or those maybes through that follow-up process to get us an appointment to begin with. Um, all of that is just that's too big a lift for us right now. Maybe when we're a $25 million company, then it may make sense, right? But right now, this is a great fit for us, is to do this because it just lets us turnkey and run. I mean, from the jump, I was impressed with the folks who were calling me to try and sell me. Normally a cold caller, I'm off the phone in 30 seconds, if it's not 3 seconds. But these, like, I haven't talked to them for a long time and said no. And then when they called me again about a year later, I was like, what do we have to lose at this point? Let's go. What I expect is to be on, let's say in a quarter, I expect to quote 6 to 10 big jobs, like 800 squares and up, right? If I get that opportunity in a quarter, I think we've got a pretty good value proposition too in the system that we offer. If I can get that many at bats with this system, I think I can win a lot. And I think that's kind of the pace we've hit, right? So let's just say since November when we got switched over. So that's 7 months. And now we've had about 9 quotes that big, 9 to 10, right? So, and that a lot of that's kind of bat loaded as he kind of picked up steam, right? So that is kind of, 6 to 10 in a quarter, of at bats like that. And then on the expectations around just like the process, my expectations are that he's going to help us close them, right? Because he does do that, and that he takes my calls or calls me back when he can't answer, right? I don't expect him to pick up the phone every time I call, right? Because he's helping other clients. I know I don't have 100% of his day. Just the business expectations are get me on the right size roofs and enough of them that have issues, and then help me close them and like don't ignore me. And he's been fantastic. Yeah, so Arsenal's definitely with us. I actually just increased my partnership. I just signed up to get, I guess, a double share of my reps' time, right? So I'm going to get double the calls, double the roofs, double everything over the next year and really build that snowball. And if things keep going like this, I'm going to have to hire an estimator to do my job, right? Or to go, that way there's 2 of us out there running these. So that's what I see. We're already talking about adding a second crew. If we close one of these in the next week or 2 with the pipeline that we've got, we feel really comfortable expanding to having a second crew. And that changes all the economics tremendously. If you've got a second crew and they're busy, your overhead coverage becomes a ton easier, right? So that's going to really change the way we go about things. We may change our whole business model around us within the next year, but we're definitely going to be larger, more secure. Our families are gonna feel a lot more secure. Not that they feel insecure now, but like this could change things drastically. And I'll have the freedom to run the business as opposed to being in the business every day, right? And fighting that hand-to-hand combat quite so much, and really get to be strategic and drive the business in partnership with Arsenal, hopefully. Yeah. So we were really, really fighting for profitability the last couple of years, right? It's really been touch and go. This business has been here since 1991. I bought a majority stake a couple of years ago, so my partner could retire. Didn't know anything about commercial roofing, only knew about residential, and was trying to take this and really run with it. And just really did, there were some points that were tough, right? But now we're profitable, right? So that has been a huge, huge turn for us. And it's something that, like I said, as we build this snowball, we're going to be able to just pour gasoline on the fire and really, really watch it burn. Um, and then I think this is going to allow me to use it's going to allow me to drive all parts of my business in a different way because now I've got the cash flow to invest in marketing for the areas that cold calling doesn't work, those residential leads, and it's going to help me grow my entire business. So, super, super excited. And I think the goals for next year, I think when the next 2 years we want to be at 10 million, and I think that we're on the way. Yeah, absolutely would. Outside of our market, for sure. Nobody in my market. But yeah, yeah. All kidding aside, absolutely. Um, I think it is absolutely worth a flyer. And my advice is really lean on Arsenal to help you choose your rep. Get as much advice out of them as you can before you choose your rep. And number two is really treat your rep like a partner, um, and try to give him or her as much as you can, because the more data they've got, the more intelligence you can give them about your market and your customers, how things are going, the better they're going to be. And that's what's worked for us. Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Caden Mitchell. He is our rep, and he is fantastic. Um, he is like an employee, as if he was just sitting right here next to me in Atlanta, and he's absolutely part of the team, and he acts like it, and I think he feels that way too. And we couldn't do what we're doing without Caden and Arsenal.